Hey guys, what it do? It's your boy Supreme Uchiha, and well, today we're gonna be talking about King Harold and his stupid escapades. Now, before y'all get mad at me in the comment sections, right? King Harold is not a poorly written character. He's very well written, but he's still a stupid and very flawed character. And I suppose we'll get into why he's quote unquote stupid and flawed. Now, we know that King Harold was, boisterous, troublemaker in his kingdom. He ended up starting a crew and going out to sea and just doing whatever he wanted out there. Until, of course, he met Ida, or Ida. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Ida, I'm going to assume. And over it, he kind of changed his whole viewpoint because he realized, hey, even though the giant, his crew, just saved Ida and her people, or saved Ida, right? That everybody was petrified of them. Everybody was scared of the giants and saw them as villains, as rascals, as troublemakers, warmongers, etc. And they had a bad reputation and name. And you're like, wait, what? Why are we viewed like that? That's what King Harold was thinking. And so when he brought Ida back to Elbaf, because obviously they ended up being in love, all of that jazz, the kingdom, the elders of Elbas were like, yo, no, you can't marry a human. What the hell? You gotta marry one of us. Like, you king. What's going on? So they refused his marriage with Ida. And he was like, what the hell? Like, I want to change this system. This system doesn't make sense. And in the meantime, while he's trying to change the system, they made an arranged marriage between him and Estrid. And, well, with Ida, he had Loki. And with with Ida, he had Harrodin, right? Harrodin, his first son. And then with Estrid, he had Loki. So he had a kid with both of them. Estrid was the official, next heir of the goddamn. Estrid's kid, Loki, made him the official heir of Elbaf. But Estrid did not like Loki and basically banished him because he had demon eyes. You know what I'm saying? He had these crazy eyes. And Harold was so busy at this point in time trying to suck up to the world government so that the world finally looks at Elbaf as just another allied nation rather than these vile, evil, warmongering, pillaging giants that caused havoc everywhere they went. So he made an effort to stop Elbaf from being viewed like this by the rest of the world, which was a very noble thing for him to do. But the problem was he went too far because Ida even tells him like, yo, there is something beautiful about Elbaf's sense of warriorship and some of the codes that they have as warriors, and he shouldn't allow the world government to remove all aspect of Elbaf's identity. And it really focuses, like this flashback, and when it comes to Harold's part of it, really focuses on the importance of culture and identity, right? It could be viewed as a meta commentary on obviously the samurai ways of Japan, right? If we think back, obviously they were warmongering, pillaging, and doing a lot of horrible things, but there was some positive aspects of the samurai culture. A part of that was the discipline and the fact that, these people were dedicated to the sword, that they were willing to die and kill themselves for it, right? One can view that as positive or negative, but there's almost a sense of that placed in here that, listen, even if a culture has negative traits and you want to remove those negative traits, there is positive aspects that should be kept as an identity. And that's, I view it almost as a meta commentary on Japan itself and how docile they've become over time. That's how I view it. Obviously, I could be completely mistaken here, but I think that's one way of interpreting it from my reading of it. And where does King Harold's stupidness come from? None of this so far is stupid. It's when he is willing to enslave himself, right? because obviously he's working with the world government, and his best friend in Rocks pulls up to him and says, hey, join me and let's stop the world government, because they're doing a lot of nasty stuff. But King Harold is so focused on getting his official marriage with Edda and living, not being a king anymore, and Elbaf being viewed as positive, that he just can't even listen to reason. And Rox is like, dude, because they met up in Marijois, right? They met up there, and they clashed. And listen, Rox was whooping at feet, man. Rox a different type of beast, and Rox big as hell, bro. You know what I'm saying? And he isn't even big in comparison to goddamn Harold, right? King Harold is ginormous, and basically when they become friends, Rox tries to recruit him. He's like, if you join me and the super devil fruit in Elbaf, right, we can destroy the world government and make the world how we want it. We can actually reshape the world. So Harold would ultimately get what he wants. But obviously the problem with it, and from Harold's viewpoint, is that Elbaf would, end up at war, and he wants to stop Elbaf from being at war. But he's naive here, because at the end of the day, if you want freedom, if you want change, if you want stuff, blood is more than likely needed to be spilled. Just look at the French Revolution in real life. You know what I'm saying? Look at, even America's War of Independence, or the war between for the enslavement, owning slaves and not owning slaves in America. Blood had to be spilled. If you look through history, blood is always spilled in order for large, sweeping changes to occur, and that's just the reality of it. But Harold is way too naive, and he just believes that no, it can't be this way. No, like I can, work with these reasonable world government people, and eventually Rox comes back to him and asks him for help one more time. He says, listen, my people are in need, bro. Like, the world government's gonna go kill my family. I have a kid and everything. As a friend, brother, he pulls up to him like, yo, I need your help to save them, bro. And this dude turns him away, bro. He turns his best friend away. And this is the breaking point for Harold here, right? He's shown a bit of stupidity because of how naive he is, right? I would say naivety more than stupidity first. And Rox goes and dies because he gets dummy reversed, and he pleads to Garp and the future king of the pirates, Goldie Roger, to kill him. Now they defeat him, but they don't kill him, because Rox is just that kind of a beast. But he does get out of dummy reversey, and both Goldie Roger and Garp are obliterated, exhausted after fighting this version of Rox. And Rox, I think, is already stronger than both of them, 1v1, no problem. I think he, but obviously when he gets dummy reversed, he's even stronger. And so now 2v1, they can barely even do anything. It's almost a stalemate, basically, because neither of them can move. But then obviously the God Knights, the Holy Knights, they pull up and they finish Harold off, and it's a sad affair. Harold obviously hears the news, and this breaks him, shatters him, because he realizes that he let his friend down. And as atonement, as punishment for himself, stupidly here, he decides to give himself up to the world government as a slave. He said, I'm even willing to be a slave, to do whatever, to let Elbaf into the fold, to join the rest of of Emu's world, basically, right? Mu's world, as Mu calls himself. Mu, dude calls himself in third person, and it's quite sad, because he does this out of spite to himself. But this spite to himself dooms Elbaf and himself, and he basically puts, the thing he's trying to protect, he puts it at bigger risk by doing this, because he ends up working for the world government and climbing up the ladder, and he obviously has a contract with Mu, and after he finally becomes a official god knight, you know what I'm saying, and he gets the tattoo, he ends up being a slave to Mu, and he accepts it. Like, you know, he can't go against Mu. And then he's like, okay, after this, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go traveling as a pirate, and my kingdom will be a part of the world government. And Mu's like, actually, it's not what you're gonna do. Big Mu says, you're gonna create an army of Elbaf warriors, and you're gonna be a new force for the world government to rule with an iron fist against the world. Harold's like, wait a minute, but I've been trying to get them out of warring and out of fighting and out of conflict. Like, the whole reason I'm doing this is so that Elbaf can stop fighting and build libraries and be more peaceful. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, you can't disobey me, fool. Do it. So then Harold has no choice but then to ask his goddamn commanders, or his night guards or whatever, his goddamn king guards to tie him up on a pillar. And he called for his two sons, right, Harold and Loki, and Loki, to come through. And Loki at this point is jailed up. You know what I'm saying? They locked him up for killing people, because Ida died as well. So this is a lot to him, because obviously not only did Rox die, Ida also died. So his sense of self is lost significantly here. This is why I'm saying that he's a well-written character. He's stupid, but he's still well-written. And you can see where the stupidity kind of clouds him here, because he lost his best friend and his lover. And obviously Loki found out that his mother, or not, his adopted mother, was poisoned, and he killed the people that poisoned him. And Loki just doesn't talk, so he probably didn't even say, hey, they poisoned mother, so I'm killing him. That's why he killed him. But he just sat in jail instead, because he's absolutely distraught. But Harold, after losing these two people, just doesn't really have anything, you know what I'm saying, any compass, moral compass, or somebody to pull his ear and be like, hey, you're being dumb here. And he also doesn't really tell anybody what he's doing, because he's not allowed to tell anybody what he's doing, because that was a part of the deal when he became contracted to Mu. He cannot tell anybody about the workings and happenings of Mary Joie. And that's kind of, him going at it alone was his biggest mistake. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but he really should have worked with Rox from the jump. Even before we knew that Rox was this good guy, we all thought, I think most of us thought, hey, he should really work with Rox here, because we know how bad the world government is, and really, he should have knew how bad the world government is. They own slaves, they do all, he went to marriage, so he saw that they own slaves, they do all sort of things, and he was complicit to all of that for the sake of Elbaf, quote unquote, or for the sake of his own freedom, because ultimately that's what he wanted. He wanted to be free to marry and do whatever he wanted. But he made a lot of these choices even when Ada was alive. But obviously by the time Ada died and everything, there was really no turning back here. He didn't even think Ada would die. He thought, oh, she's just sick, like she gonna recover, and then boom, dead. So Harold here obviously gets finessed by Mu, of course. As we know, the world government is the most evilest, vilest people you can meet, and that's how his story ends, in death by the hands of Loki, who gets freed because he commands that, I don't care, get Loki and Harold in here, get both of my sons here. And Loki pulls up. We didn't see the chapter. I think we're gonna go back to the present in the new chapter. I don't think they're gonna show it to us, because they off-screen piece, so I think that's basically what's going to happen. I will make a video on what I think about One Piece's legendary battles. I think Oda is amazing at a lot of things, and I think fight scenes and fight choreographies is just not one of the things that he's very good at. Unless it's to do with Zoro, because Zoro fights a fire, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Zoro fans be eating. Nah, I'm joking. But yeah, that's what I think. I think Harold here is just a foolish, naive character, and that ends in his demise and the demise of his kingdom, because obviously his kingdom is now under threat in the present, because the world government technically owns it by right now, thanks to Harold and him basically handing over his kingdom away to Mu. But what do you guys think? Let me know. I really love Harold's story. I really enjoyed it. I think Rox, for me, has been one of the best written characters I've read. He's sensational. And I think I understand Blackbeard a lot more seeing Rock's story. And I see why he has so much rage and anger. Harold, on the other hand, I can see why Loki, he was already alone or rejected by his birth mother. His father never really showed up or cared for him that much, and then he had to kill that same father by his own hands. It's a lot to take. So I cannot wait until we get Loki, and he's obviously going to join the Straw Hats. I'm very excited for it. But let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. It's been your boy Supreme Uchiha the God. I'm out.